Everybody, Facebook. I know we're 3 minutes late, but it's going to be worth it today. We had a few technical difficulties, but it's 5:30 on Tuesday. So you know what time it is. It's time for Sales Hustlers Spotlight. And we couldn't have anybody better. A man that I've been wanting to have on here since day one. After I saw him in July at the F&I or the dealer, some 20 conference we had with Sean Bradley up there. Man, he brought the house down. I had to go shake his hand at the end and tell him that I was motivated and inspired, and look where we are today. That's what this industry is about. People helping people then getting better, learning their grind, getting their grind, and look who it came full circle. So guys, I want to introduce Shaka Dyson. Shaka, I want you to tell everybody what you say every video at the start of your video.
Come on with it. Shaka Dyson here, motivational speaker, record-breaking F&I trainer, and your friend in the automotive business. Man, Sean, that was a hell of an introduction, my man. I can tell you've done this before, champion.
I've done it a couple times. Actually, 16. You're number 16 to be exact. But I'm going to tell you what. Do you remember us meeting that first time?
I do, man. I do. There was quite a few people that came up to me at the end of when I got off the stage, man. But I remember you sitting right down in the front, man.
That's right. That's where I always sit. That's where the learners sit, buddy.
Right.
Right?
That's right, man.
Well, I want to thank you today. You're going to drop some knowledge to everybody. We're going to get in a little bit about your life in and out of the car business. Take us through a walk to where you are today. Yeah. I thank you very much, and I think we're all going to get a lot out of it. But I want to start where you started at. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're from in your childhood?
Yeah, first of all, man, let me tell you, I appreciate the invite, man. I appreciate your team. I appreciate your audience, man. I appreciate you guys inviting me into your group to drop a little knowledge about F&I. I think the whole world can benefit from F&I. I think the whole entire automotive industry benefits from F&I, man. So I greatly appreciate you guys reaching out, man. And yeah, man. So, I've got a story that's like a lot of stories out there, maybe a little different here and there, but my story is, I come from Los Angeles, California. I was raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. As an adult, when I became an adult, moved down to Atlanta, man, and grew my career, man. Ended up in Chicago about 5 years ago. Spent 3 years in Chicago, and now I'm down in Charleston, man. But my story is one of adversity and hurdles and challenges and overcoming. I was once asked here like 2 weeks ago, man. I was at church, and the pastor asked us to use one word to describe ourselves. And the one word I could come up with to describe myself, just like many out there, is overcome, is an overcomer. And I believe that applies to a lot of us out there. My mother left me when I was 2 years old. I didn't have the opportunity to know her as I was growing up, when I was being raised. And so I overcame that. I had adversity in my childhood. It was very rough. I overcame that. I'm a high school dropout. I overcame that. I'm a teenage father. I had my first baby girl, when I was 18 years old. She's going to be graduating from college this year, by the way. But I had her when I was 18 years old. Before I got into the automotive industry, I was poor. As a matter of fact, I was so poor that when I initially filed for taxes my first year, I got an extra tax incentive because the lady said that I made below the poverty line. I overcame. So, there's a lots of adversity in my life, just like many people out there that I've overcome to become successful and to influence others, man. And so, I think that's why people look to me, is because they see someone out there who's overcome challenges and who was just like them, but who kept pushing to succeed.
Well, that's exactly the point. And that's exactly the point. I've had my own, I feel like everybody in this industry, a lot of these successful people have all had a sketchy childhood, of troubles, overcoming problems with this, problems with this. I've heard a lot of stories since being on this, in and out of jail, drugs, just everything. And I'm going to tell you what, it makes a strong person, a strong man, and a strong leader if you can then, instead of blaming and passing judgment, you can overcome. And that's what I heard that day from you, and that's what I was like, man, I'm all charged up, man, because I had Paul Cummings to start, you to end. Man, it was a great meeting. I love that. Now, you told me you were from LA, lived in Chicago, you lived in Atlanta. Those are both places that I lived, man. I love that area. What part of Chicago did you live?
So I lived out in Aurora.
Okay.
However, I had dealerships all over Chicago, and I know that, I'm probably getting a little ahead of myself here, but I ran the F&I department, or I was one of two people that ran the F&I department for 34 dealerships across 5 states in this country, and 13 of them initially that turned into 18 of them were in Illinois, 13 of them in the Chicago area. So I was all over Chicago, but I lived out in Aurora.
Okay, cool. Well, you are right. We will get to that. I want to learn a little bit about after you didn't graduate high school. That was probably challenging from you. How did you feel when you didn't graduate? Did that really weigh on you for a little bit of time?
Man, you know what? I'm going to tell you the truth. Before I got into the automotive business, it did. And the reason being is because I had 2 parents who were college graduates. I had a brother and a sister who was a college graduate. But everyone that I knew, when I became an adult, I moved into very poor housing. And the one thing about if you've ever been poor or know somebody, or if I'm speaking to somebody and they have ever been poor in their life, when you're poor, you don't realize how very poor you are because everyone in your building is poor. Everyone in your building is shopping at the same Aldi's. Everyone in your building is walking across the street with big bags of laundry to the laundromat to go get their laundry done. Every one of us had hoopties. And hoopty is an old, broke-down car that's about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, just so you know. But all of us were in the same predicament. And so therefore, I attributed a lot of my circumstance at that time to being a high school dropout because I didn't know how else to attribute it. And also, when I saw people who I deemed to be successful, those who made $100,000 a year, $80,000, $90,000 a year, who drove cars that were like, in the current year, all of them, it looked like they all were not only high school graduates, but also had something to do with college, etc. Now, my perception of all that changed when I got into the automotive industry. But before I got into the automotive industry, yeah, it did. It weighed on me, man. I didn't know how I would overcome my circumstance to be successful from being a high school dropout. I didn't know how I was going to bridge that gap until I got into the automotive industry.
You know what's funny about that? I felt the same way, Shaka. Shaka, the biggest problem after high school, when you ain't found yourself yet, is how do I grind? How do I make this money? What do I do? I see these other people, but I don't see these doors opening for me. You know what I mean? So I do know what you mean. So what did you do before the car business? How did you get your grind on?
So I worked, believe it or not, man, I worked for a sign company. So when I dropped out of high school, about 6 months after I dropped out of high school, I ended up in Job Corps. And going in Job Corps, man, I learned a trade, the sign trade. I was like, okay, awesome. So these TGI Friday signs that you see on restaurants and these neon signs, man, I did a lot of that in Indianapolis where I grew up. And that's what I did before I got into the automotive industry. So I was as blue collar as it came. I'm talking about uniform. I'm talking about name tag on my shirt. I'm talking about tool belt. Dude, I'm talking about steel-toed boots. I'm talking about it was the real. I used to go to the shop. We called it the shop every day.
Yeah, the lunch pail.
The lunch pail, the roach coach. That's what I did, man.
So how did you find the car biz?
So I had a guy that I grew up with, man, who was actually younger than me, that ended up he came into in our section of buildings, man, and ended up coming to my apartment with a brand new vehicle one day. And I looked at the guy and I was thinking, man, I went to school with you, man. I know you don't have the money to buy a car like you just showed up in. I think it was a 1998 Nissan Altima or Maxima or something like that. And this is back in 98. And I'm thinking, wow, man. And he said, dude, it's a company car. And I'm thinking, what? A company car? You're not a college grad. So I ended up going outside with him down to his car, and he did what he called a walk around, and he took me on a test drive on this car that had some dealer plates on it. I'm like, wow. So from that time that he showed me this car, and then he also spread out about $1,000. He put $1,000 in my hand and said, hey, man, I just got paid this today. This is my bonus. And, dude, I'm looking at this stack of $1,000, and I'm saying to myself, oh my God, dude, I could pay my rent for a year with this, man. You know, because, you know, when you're poor, buddy, my rent wasn't but $315 for a 2-bedroom. That's how run down these apartment buildings were. But so I had the itch. Ever since that day, I had the itch. And it just so happened, man, that I was at my sign company one day and I saw an ad in the classified papers. Believe it or not, man, they used to have ads in the newspaper. It's called right. It's called the classified section. But I saw a section in there in this newspaper that happened to be sitting on my table that said $45,000 first year, no experience necessary. Come interview at Hubler Dodge in Greenwood, south side of Indianapolis, this Tuesday and Wednesday between this time and this time. And I was like, oh my God, no experience necessary? I can make $45,000 a year? Oh my God, I'm all in. And so that's how I ended up going to interview for my first sales position.
So obviously back then, any warm body came in that wanted to do it. They probably had no problem. They hire you right there on the spot?
You know what? They didn't. I had to go through what they called this CARS program, man. I had to spend I think it was like $600 to go through a CARS program for a week, and they would reimburse me if they would hire me. And so I spent the $600. It's all I had. I had spent the whole year saving this $600, and dude, I ended up spending it. I went through this CARS program where they told you about the car business, etc. And afterwards, man, I gave a dynamic interview, man, like I'm talking now, and they hired me right there. A guy named Scott Griffin, who I'm still connected to this day, hired me right then. And it's weird, man. I showed up to that interview. I had to go borrow a tie from my dad's closet. I had on some Dickie pants, some penny loafers. I mean, I had a shirt from Kohl's because, you know, when you're poor, and back then I didn't have any professional clothes, right? We called them Sunday clothes because the only place you wore these type of clothes was the church. So I had to kind of put it all together, and I showed up for the interview, man, and they ended up hiring me. Yeah, I'm one of 2 people they ended up hiring out of that class that I invested in.
Well, I remember you saying the reason why you're always positive and you're always motivated is because of the adversity you had been through in your life. Now, we touched on that briefly earlier, but I wanted to ask you, why do you think some people conquer that adversity and some people wallow in it and go backwards in life?
You know, man, I'm going to be honest with you, man. Either you can have a victor mentality or victim mentality, man. And here's the deal. I always knew that out of life I wanted more. So what that my mother left me when I was 2 years old and wasn't involved in my life? So what my older brother been in prison my entire adult life? So what that I'm a high school dropout? So what I'm a teenage runaway? So what I had a daughter when I was very young? So what? I chose to turn this adversity into fuel for my success. So the people who wallow in their circumstance are the people who focus on it, you know, and I'm a true believer of this. You get what you focus on in life, period. You get what you focus on. So if you focus on every challenge that you have, if you focus on every bad thing that's ever occurred in your life, if you focus on every time somebody has done you wrong, if you focus on the problem, guess what? You'll always have the problem. But if you focus on a solution, if you focus on success, and if you look for the blueprint of those who have overcome the challenge that you are currently facing, listen to me, any of us can be successful. We just got to be willing to push through the challenge to go get the success.
Amen, man. Amen. Thank you for dropping that, because that's what makes people strong. That's what takes people to the next level. That's what makes people great. And I thank you for that, man. My audience will thank you for that. I promise you. So you get there, you're selling, you pass this, they hire 2 people, you start selling. How long do you sell on the floor?
So I sold for 2 years, man. Before I got into F&I, I sold for 2 years, man. And it was an amazing 2 years. And listen to me, I was 21 years old. My life changed when I got into the car business. It absolutely changed, because in the car business is the first time I ever met somebody in person who made 6 figures. I had never met somebody like that before. And it happened to be another salesperson. And I'll never forget when I met him and I talked with him, and his name was Scott Robar or Roberson or whatever his name was. But when he told me, hey, you know, last year I made $110,000, I'm thinking to myself, you made $110 grand? You work here? and we gonna be doing the same thing? Oh my God, game on. If you can make it, I can make it. I know I can make it. So it changed my life. And so for 2 years, man, I'm out there giving it all I got. And let me tell you something. It allowed me to get rid of my hoopty and buy a newer car. It allowed me to move out of those rundown buildings into a normal apartment building. It allowed me to actually open up a bank account so that I have money to put into a bank account. It allowed me to do things, go to dinner at places that were other than Steak and Shake. You know, it allowed me to buy my daughter presents that she hadn't had before. It allowed me to go on trips that I had never been on before. So the car business changed my life. It allowed me to provide a lifestyle for my little girl that I wasn't able to have as a young adult. So the car business did everything for me in those 2 years, man. I loved every second of it.
That's amazing. To my audience, real quick.
Yeah.
Man, he is dropping some fire right now, some knowledge, and it's going to help some people. I need you to hit share right now. We got to get this out to the rest of the car community. If you can, do me that favor right now. Hit some likes for him. He's coming with some passion, and that's what we all want. Now, they came and tapped you then. They said, Shaka, man, you're killing it out here on the floor. We need to promote you. We're going to send you into the business office.
Yep.
Or the box, as they called it back then, or the finance department. How did you like that right away? Did it mesh with you right away?
Man, so you know, it was a learning curve. But here's the deal: the F&I. I didn't get into the F&I office at the same dealership that I was selling cars at. I got into the F&I office in a completely different city at a completely different automotive group. You know, what happened was I had a young F&I manager back in the F&I office. He was 25 years old. His name was Adrian Quirk, good friend of mine back then. And I'll never forget, I saw him and I was like, wow, what does he do? It's called what? It's called F&I, finance and insurance. Okay. And I'm looking at the guy, and what I knew about him was, man, he dressed very nice. He got to sit in an office. He got to do paperwork. He got to be a manager. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, in the wintertime, I got to go out here and shovel snow. In the wintertime, I got to go out here and move this lot around. In the wintertime, I got to pull my manager's demos up, brush all the snow off the car, warm the vehicle up so that my manager can have a warm vehicle to come out to. I'm thinking to myself, he gets to sit back there, and I have to do all of this, and all he's doing is what's called F&I. Man, I need to figure out how to do that. And so I ended up calling a school, a warranty company who had a school, man, and this warranty company was going to send me out to school. I ended up going to school for this warranty company, and then what they did was they set me up with an interview with the guy in Lafayette, Indiana, for the Bob Rohrman Automotive Group back in 2001. He's a large dealer in the Midwest. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a massive dealer in the Midwest. But he owns Lafayette, Indiana. I mean, the guy's got like 13 stores in Lafayette, Indiana. And I went to interview at Bob Rohrman Hyundai Suzuki Mitsubishi, and with a guy named Jason Troxel, who was actually in my F&I 20 group. And I had no F&I background, just sales, just the ability to sell. But what I found was when I went into this interview, he and I both were motivational speakers. He and I both were like Tony Robbins, Jim Rome, Zig Ziglar. I mean, those were our hot. So we had a 3-hour interview on motivation. And dude, let me tell you something. I ended up going to this interview in Lafayette, Indiana, driving back to my store in Indianapolis, man. And he said, let me take the weekend to think about it. You amongst all these other guys, candidates with F&I background. And he took the weekend, and he called me Monday at the dealership. Hey, I remember getting the page. I'll never forget it. Shaka Dyson, you have a phone call on line 2. Shaka Dyson, line 2. So this is back before everybody had cell phones, by the way. So I went to my desk. I picked up the phone, and it was Jason. He said, Shaka. I said, yeah. Jason Troxel here. I said, yeah. Hey, sir, how are you? He said, when can you start? And, dude, let me tell you something, man. I melted right there on the showroom floor. I melted because this was an entire year of me pursuing F&I. An entire year of me dealing with rejection and my GM telling me no, my sales managers telling me no and discouraging me from doing it, from people telling me it'll never happen for me because of my background. So it was an entire year of me pushing through the adversity to get it. And when he said, when can you start? That was it. And this guy became my brother forever. And to this day, he and I are close. He's actually in my Facebook group, and he's the one that gave me the opportunity, man. But I had to move in order to take advantage of the opportunity, I had to move from Indianapolis to Lafayette, Indiana. This is one of the lessons that I learned about success. Sometimes you have to go where the success is. You have to be mobile. You have to have the ability to move. Right. And so in order for me to take advantage of the opportunity, I had to leave where I was comfortable, and I had to go where I didn't know anyone. I had to go where I didn't know what F&I was. I didn't know who the people were. All I knew was I was up there where Purdue University was. Drew Brees was playing for Purdue back then. And I said, hey, man, let me go up here and give it a shot. So I went up there, didn't know anybody. And so I decided to, since I was in an environment that I was unfamiliar with, I decided to immerse myself in F&I and just dedicate 24/7, 24 hours a day to F&I, man. And so I did.
That's an amazing lesson there. There's two lessons I took out of that. One was, you have to go where the success is, which I agree. But the second thing I want to know is, why didn't your current bosses that you had, your current manager, your current GM, notice what they had sitting right at their dealership? The ability to discern a hardworking, motivational, man, if we give this guy a chance, who knows what could happen? Why can't some of the people that are around us see what we are? Why does it take other people outside of us to see that?
Well, man, you never know. You never know where your path is going to lead you. What I mean by that is, at my current store, admittedly, they didn't have an F&I position open. Their subprime position was filled. They had a second subprime manager. They also had a prime manager. So they had 3 F&I managers already on their F&I team. And here I am, Shaka Dyson, pushing and shoving to get into F&I. And admittedly, man, I didn't have my attitude wasn't always chippy and happy back then, man. Sometimes, I wasn't the best. I didn't play great in the sandbox with other salespeople all the time. Meaning this, I had no problem telling another salesperson back then, listen, you ain't going to split my deal, buddy. We can go back to the bullpen and talk about it. So, I didn't have a problem telling a guy like that, and here it is. I'm 21, 22 years old, man. And I had some maturing to do back then. And so what they saw was they saw a young guy who was hungry, who had a little girl, who didn't come from the best. Again, I was driving a hoopty until I was able to buy something better, who was out there trying, and who was out there grinding and pushing and shoving and hustling. And I was different than a lot of the guys who were out on the showroom floor, who didn't have to push that hard because getting that commission wasn't everything to them. They had a little cushion to fall back on. I didn't. What I had was my skill set. What I had was me. What I had was my ability. What I had was my outlook, my vision, and my go-get-itness that I had to get out of myself. So my approach to it was a little different. When they stood inside on the showroom floor, I stood out on the point. When they stood out on the point, I stood out on the lot. And when they stood out on the lot, I stood out on the front gate, because I had to have that up. And so therefore, my ambition was different. My approach was different. My hustle was different. And so based on that, I don't know if they saw an F&I manager in me at the store that I was working at. But luckily, Jason Troxel did up there in Lafayette, Indiana, and thank God for him, because here I am, because he gave me the shot.
That's good. I bet you at 21, you couldn't look at yourself and say that. I bet you it took years later for you to look back and say, maybe I wasn't living the life for them to promote me. That's pretty cool. That's awesome that you can see that in yourself now.
1,000%.
Yeah. All right. So what is the most challenging thing about finance manager's job? We got a lot of salesmen in here. Probably a lot of these salesmen would like to go into finance, into management. What's the most challenging thing?
So the most challenging,
or for you, when you got in it, what was the most challenging thing?
Yeah, so the most challenging thing for Shaka Dyson when I first got into it is getting around the learning curve. And what I mean by that is dedicating myself to becoming good no matter who was around me, no matter who said, no matter who told me what I couldn't do, no matter who told me what I couldn't accomplish. What I had to learn was people will tell you what you can and can't accomplish based on themselves and based on their own limitation. I had to learn that because initially when I got into F&I, I was listening to everybody else. I was listening to them tell me what type of PVR that people actually run around there, what type of service contract penetration was good, what type of product penetration was good, what type of CITs I should have, or what was possible. Right. And so what I was doing was I was listening to other people instead of looking at myself in the mirror and listening to myself. And when I got around that curve, when I understood that people will only advise you based on their limitation, it was off to the races. So what I did was I didn't know about F&I. Dude, I didn't know what a law contract was. Banker systems contracts were big back then. I didn't know what those were. I didn't know dealer track and I didn't know all these banks that were in there. So I had to sit and I had to learn because I'm coming from the showroom floor, the sales floor, straight into F&I spending deals, right? There was no leeway period. There was nobody there to train me. And so therefore, morning, noon, and night, I sat in my office and just learned. And I learned, and I learned. And I actually, Jason Troxel actually gave me some F&I seminars on VHS tapes that I actually took back to my home, my apartment, and sat in my living room floor. Didn't have a couch, so I sat in my living room floor, dude, and I watched those VHS tapes over and over and over again, figuring out different ways to sell, man. And so, the biggest challenge is, the biggest hurdle is when you don't know, you have to make the decision, you have to commit, and you have to be willing to go through the challenge, no matter how bad it hurts, because it's gonna hurt. But you got to be willing to go through the adversity. You got to be willing to go through the challenge to see the success. Otherwise, why do it? Otherwise, why do it? So that was my biggest lesson. That was my biggest challenge. And ultimately, that became my biggest success and one of my best attributes.
I love it. What you said a second ago about your limitations or other people's thoughts. I love that. Getting past that. I love that what you said that. All right. So what is the best part of finance?
Man, the best part is the skill set that you gain, right? Arguably, F&I managers are the strongest, not arguably, F&I managers are and they are the strongest closers in a dealership, hands down, period, right? And they are arguably the best salespeople in a store. And not the most important, right? I always make this clear to my staff in any dealership. Salespeople in a dealership are the most important individuals in that store. We all work for them, hands down. And any manager who thinks otherwise needs to exit the dealership. We all work for salespeople. But what I mean by F&I managers being the strongest closers and the strongest salespeople are, back in F&I, we sell intangibles. Back in F&I, we deal with resistance 24/7. Back in F&I, we deal with people who come to our dealership who have studied us for 3, 4, 5 months, who have looked at YouTube and who has gotten advice from every family member or friend that they got who said, hey, when you go to that dealership, don't you buy none of that stuff from that guy back there in that office, that old banker guy, right? They came to the dealership to purchase the vehicle. They came to the dealer. They set the appointment up to come see the salesperson. They did not come to that dealership to come see F&I. And so the best part of it is the strength that you gain, the skill set that you gain, the ability that you gain in F&I. When you gain that type of experience, that type of strength, then all the other positions that you get elevated to become easier and you're more effective in them because you have that F&I experience. That's
awesome. So I know you were in finance for a while, and I do know that you had some other roles in a dealership. Tell me about some of the roles you handled and which one your favorite one was.
Yeah. So I'm finance. I've been a finance director. I've been a sales manager. I've been a general sales manager. I ran a big Honda dealership. And I also, most recently, before I launched Dealer F&I University, I was the corporate F&I trainer for the Automotive Group, the 34-store Automotive Group that we had 34 stores across 5 states. We had brands from Porsche and Aston Martin all the way to Hyundai and Kia and Acura and Mitsubishi and Volkswagen, etc. So I worked at the corporate level, and my responsibility was to teach, train, develop, and grow my entire F&I staff. I was responsible for revenue. I was responsible for the sales portion of our F&I teams, the revenue, hiring and letting our F&I members go if we needed to let them go, keeping my F&I team staff. So I had 65 F&I managers that reported to me across 5 states. And so being in this position was the most rewarding position, because what I was able to bring to them wasn't fake. It was real. It was skill set. It was life-changing. It was skill set, right? It was something completely different than they have ever seen. And so that was the most rewarding to me, and it continues to pay dividends to this day. I have many of my F&I managers that I've hired onto my teams that are still connected to me to this day, who still reach out to me to this day, who still follow me to this day. So that was the most rewarding position.
Okay. All right. So you have this group that you're speaking of that has 34 dealerships. All right. You're traveling around, you're making sure everything's run right. They have everything they need. They're trained properly, make sure everything's buttoned up tight. All right. What was the most frustrating thing you would notice when you go to some of these dealerships? Old-fashioned thinking, man. How did you change that, Shaka?
Man, you have to push and shove. You have to push and shove. You have to get people to understand that this is 2000. Back then it was 2013, 2014, 2015. This wasn't the 90s. And what you'd often hear, and I'm sure that you often hear this, people will love to tell you how long they've been in the business. They love to tell you that because they have a warped sense of accomplishment because they've been in the business 25 or 30 years or 35 years. So people will love to. The first thing they do in the automotive industry is they shake your hand and introduce themselves. The second thing they do is they tell you how long they've been in the business. How you doing, Sean? My name is Daryl, and I've been in the business 30 years. How you doing? My name is Jamie, and I've been in the business 20 years. How you doing, right? But what they don't see is how the automotive industry has evolved, how it continuously moves and it gets better and it's constantly changing, right? How technology is changing, how transparency is changing, how customer satisfaction and the need to satisfy customers. It's all, the mindsets are changing, right? And so you have to push and shove. And sometimes in my team, you got to weed it out. You got to weed out the old thinking, and you got to put new blood on that F&I team. And so what I did was, believe it or not, whenever I would have an opportunity in any one of my stores and in any one of the states, my first method of hiring an F&I manager was not via Career Builder, not via Indeed, not outside, but always from the showroom floor. And there are many people in the F&I 20 group that I promoted to F&I who are in the F&I 20 group currently. But it was the showroom floor. Why? Because I can teach anybody how to be great in F&I, but you can't teach the right character. What I mean by that is the right attitude. Are you goal-oriented? The right work ethic? Are you willing to do anything to succeed? What are your goals? Do you have big dreams? Do you have big dreams for your life and for your career? Are you ethical? Are you willing to do whatever it takes to become great in F&I? These are attributes that I look for when I'm hiring people in F&I. So when I saw hungry salespeople on the showroom floor, people who wanted the opportunity, people who had the desire to better themselves in their careers, those are the people that I look to. Those are the people who I let get my attention and get my time. And those are the people that I would invest in. And I tell you what, when you hire the right people, it takes your F&I team to the next level, man.
Woo! Give me a woo!
Come on with it. Come on with it,
man. You're getting it. I love it. I love it. I love the passion. I love the fire. I love what you're saying. I've been listening to Glenn Lundy a lot, and he has said for a long time, he says, Sean, I will always, always hire and promote on character, not credentials.
Absolutely.
And if we do that, and it sounds like you did that too, people's character, their moral standing, what they believe in, how hard they will work. I think We need to stop worrying about how many cars people sell and start worrying about what they got inside of them before you promote them.
Amen.
All right?
Absolutely.
What's the most common thing F&I managers have stopped doing in today's dealerships that they used to?
So, the most common thing that I see, the most common issue that I see is, I don't know that they've stopped doing this versus have they ever done it. And what I mean by that is having or creating the correct process. Now, here's how you can format that in the having stopped. When they were selling cars, 99% of F&I managers were salespeople first, okay? And when they were selling cars, they were self-reliant when they were selling cars. They are the ones who called the leads to follow up. In my case, we were the ones who were standing out on the point going to get that up. Or we were the ones that were out prospecting at the restaurants and at the dry cleaners and at the library and wherever else we would go. So we were putting in the work to get the customer, to get the up, to sell the car, to close the customer, and get our commission, right? We were 110% involved in every aspect of selling that car, to getting the up, to taking them out there to select the vehicle, to doing a walk around, to taking them on a test drive, to getting everybody in the buying decision together, bringing them all back to the dealership, sitting them down, doing the negotiation, the whole entire thing. Well, what happened was, to a lot of F&I managers, they'll get into F&I and then all of a sudden they'll relinquish some of that self-reliance. What I mean by that is sometimes I found that F&I managers will rely on the salespeople on the showroom floor to plant the seed, to talk about maybe you may need a service contract, or the last time you got into an accident, did you have gap protection? Or sometimes an F&I manager will rely on the desk to leave them a little bit of the right? Or show them some love, right? Or pre-sale some of the back-end product. This payment includes environmental, etc. So what I want us F&I managers to do is get back to that self-reliance, to show the entire dealership why we are so valuable to that team. Because I truly believe the strength of the F&I department is the strength of the entire dealership, period, hands down. The stronger the F&I department, the stronger that dealership is in the market, right? If you have a super strong F&I department, then that sales team can take shorter deals and eat up more of the market share, right? Because they can rely on that F&I department to generate the revenue that they may lose on the front end. Would you agree?
Oh, I agree 100%.
So therefore, the strength of the F&I department is the strength of the dealership, man. So that's what I would say that they stopped doing. They stopped being self-reliant and they started relying on other people. When in fact, in F&I, we got to rely on ourselves, man, to generate it. And we have to allow other people to rely on us.
I like that, man. Shaka, here's what I would say about that. And I see this a lot across the industry. Okay. Payments are closed for the F&I department. Okay. Everything is given room or some padding the stats. So our F&I department, they close them. All right. But we did all the work on the front end, man. They send us out there with the payment to close with a couple grand, $3,000 down, and we give them all the room, and they ride off the sunset and make all the darn money. That's what frustrates the front of the house compared to that. I don't think that's right. I think they should earn their own keep. You know what I mean? I believe you should sell your own products. I'll sell the car, you sell your products. Now, I'll set you up the right way. Mm-hmm. I'll walk you in with the TO. I'll tell you what I think is a benefit to the customer. But at the end of the day, I shouldn't be selling your products. You know what I'm saying?
1,000%. I 100% agree with that. As a matter of fact, I don't want you to set me up. I don't want you to sell my product. I don't want you to set me up. I don't want you to do any of that. If anything, I want to reverse that. I want my finance managers to come out to the showroom floor and help the sales team close deals, right? We don't need padding in the payment. We don't need room. Your job is to sell the vehicle, make the customer love the dealership, make the customer get familiar and love the service department, get the customer to love that vehicle so much that they're licking the paint off of it. Right? That's your job, to give that customer the best service, the best sales experience that they've ever had. I call it rolling out the red carpet. And then once they are done on the sales floor, now it's F&I's time. Right now it's F&I's opportunity. right? But before that, you don't need to plant seeds. You don't need to leave padding in the payment. You don't need to do anything except make that customer smile from having a wonderful experience. And then F&I should be able to interject themselves and then take it from there and then take that great customer experience to the next level.
But you know that's not the norm, don't you?
It's not the norm because it's not the norm yet. But the more dealerships I reach in this automotive industry, we're going to change it into the norm. Come on with it.
I like it. I like it, man. I like it. I like these friendships and partnerships that I'm meeting with people out there that have like minds like mine. I just love it.
Right.
All right. So the customer tells us, Shaka, they said the process is too slow, my man. How do we speed it up for the customer?
Yep. So you have to listen. I always tell people this. I was just with my business partner, Grant Cardone, a few months ago, and we did a show, and I was telling him that I have the 3 P's in F&I. Process and presentation equal production. I'm going to say that again for everybody watching. Process and presentation equal production. So in order to get the right production in F&I, you have to have the right process and you have to do the right presentation, right? So as far as the process is concerned, you're exactly right. Customers always believe, their perception is that it takes way too long to purchase a vehicle, and it takes even way longer to do the F&I portion. So what we as F&I managers have to do is we have to take time out of the equation. We have to take time out of the process, right? We have to make it convenient. And I teach this in Dealer F&I University. I teach F&I managers how to do this, but you have to take time out of the process. Right? How do you take time out of the process? By getting rid of some of the redundant things that F&I managers do. Shaka, what are you talking about? I'm talking about doing that long customer customer interview that we're supposed to do. Listen to me. This garbage has been sold from these companies who go out and try to teach F&I managers how to do F&I, but these companies have never done F&I before, or they haven't done it for 20 years. So all they could do is talk about how long they've been in the business and what they used to do, right? But again, this is 2015, 16, 17, now 18, getting ready to be 19 and 20. We have to do what's now. And what's now is we have to remove time from the process. We have to remove time, get rid of things that are redundant, get rid of the customer interrogation, get involved with that customer early, right? Get involved in that customer as they're purchasing the vehicle. Allow that customer to get familiar with you as an F&I manager before they ever come back to your F&I office. Come on. There's so many things that we can do. F&I managers should be up on the desk helping the sales managers work the deals and even going in on closing deals. That's how you take time out of the equation, right? So that's how we shorten it up. That's how we give customers the convenience that they're looking for. Because customers want great experiences at dealerships, but they don't want to spend the entire day there.
No, they don't. They don't. All right. So what is it? Say we got a new guy coming off the floor. They promote him into finance. You're at his dealership that day. You only got a couple minutes with him. What is the number one thing that you would sit him down and explain, him or her, and you would give them advice on? What would it be?
So if I got a couple of minutes with a brand new F&I manager, the first thing I would tell them is to stay away from the negativity. Stay away from the negativity. Get rid of do not be around people who will come to your house with a garbage can full of trash, who will walk into your living room, dump it all over your floor, and then leave. Because that's what negative people do. The first thing I would tell them is, listen, stay laser focused on your goal. Stay laser focused on your goal and train as much as you possibly can, because excellence only comes through training. Michael Jordan only became Michael Jordan because he practiced and he trained enough to become Michael Jordan. Muhammad Ali trained to become Muhammad Ali. Steve Jobs didn't just wake up and create Apple, right? He trained, he learned, he put himself through the learning curve in order to create what's now has changed the world. It's training, it's staying positive, and it's knowing that you can do it. What they say, Thomas Edison, he failed 10,000 times before he ever created the light bulb, right? But what he did was he stayed away from all the negativity, all the adversity. And what he said was that he didn't fail 9,999 times. He said he found ways that didn't work 9,999 times, but all he needed was that one. And guess what? Now we got lights all over the planet because he didn't give up. So I would tell him, stay focused, stay away from that negativity, and train constantly, and you'll hit your goals.
Well, that's probably the same thing you would give the advice of a salesman then. I probably would say that.
1,000%.
Stay away from negativity, keep training, keep positive, man. I like it. I know you started Dealer F&I University.
There we go.
There it is, right behind them. What? Tell me a little bit about that, why you developed it and when and what it's all about.
So, man, everyone is familiar with the #1 sales platform on the planet, on-demand sales platform. That would be Cardone University, right? Everybody's familiar with Grant. Well, he's become a business partner of mine, and his Cardone University is for the sales team. Well, I created something like that, but for F&I. Why? The reason why I created that is because I know all the wrong teachings that are happening. I know what all these F&I schools are teaching, right? Dude, I've got plaques for days. I've got certificates for days from all these F&I schools. Remember, I told you, the first F&I schools I ever went to were on VHS tapes, right? Well, here they are. These are the actual tapes that I was going on, right? The F&I training. So I've got certificates for days on my walls. I've got AFIP certification. I know what every one of these schools teach. And I know that what these schools teach are incorrect. Dude, let me tell you something. They still got schools that teach the Columbo close. Dude, that's how outdated this training is. But I knew that real F&I managers recognize real F&I managers. So us who are in the field, who are in the trenches, who have to do the deals at 11:30 at night, with somebody purchasing a car who's got 3 third basemen, and all of them are saying, hey, I gotta go. And the 3 third basemen are telling the one person buying the car that they don't need it, right? And the third person buying the car is listening to Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey and their Aunt Alice, who works as an insurance company, says, oh, don't you buy none of that back end stuff back there that they're gonna try to sell you, right? There's no F&I school that could teach F&I managers how to deal with that situation. These F&I schools teach best case scenarios, right? That's all they teach, right? So they believe when a customer says this, you say this, and then the customer should close, when in fact it never happens like that. Customers say, no, my uncle's a mechanic. My Aunt Alice sells Gap for cheaper at her insurance company. My grandma said I don't want to go up on a payment. I had one before, never used it. It's outside of my butt, right? So they object. So what Dealer F&I University is it's real F&I training based on Shaka Dyson's experience. Right? Every time I failed and had to claw my way back to become successful in F&I. That's what Dealer F&I University is. It's focused on skill set, building your F&I muscle and building your F&I intellect so that you can build your F&I skill set, constantly sharpening your axe, and not that old corporate F&I school stuff that they like to send you to, right? So that's what Dealer F&I University is. It's real skill set training. It's giving F&I managers real ability to succeed beyond their wildest dreams in F&I.
I love it, man. I love it. Thank you. You bring it, brother. I love it.
Come on,
hey, man, me and you, I'll tell you, if we had dinner together, I don't know who we'd both be standing up, running out the place at the end. How do you see the car industry changing in the near future?
Yeah, so I think, and I was talking to somebody earlier today, I think that more and more of the industry is going to be app-driven, right? Technology is taking over everything, right? Transparency. It's about transparency. It's you know how sometimes the housing market is either a renter's market or it's a homeowner's market, well, the automotive industry is a customer's market, meaning no longer can dealerships not give customers all the information, right? Because customers typically have all the information they need before they ever get to a store. Right? And I think that this is going to happen more and more because not only are customers now getting all the information before they ever get to a store, but now some customers to purchase vehicles are not only getting all the information, but they're not even going to the store, i.e. the Carvanas of the world, right? So I think that in the future, the automotive industry is going to be more app driven than anything. You're going to be able to do your F&I, get the F&I information you need via app. You're going to be able to purchase the vehicle via app. You're going to be able to set an appointment, have the vehicle brought out to you so that you can see it via app. So I think that technology is going to take over the game in the automotive industry.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it's already starting to happen.
1,000%.
All right, so I'm giving Shaka Dyson today. I'm giving you the magic wand.
Okay.
All right, so I want you to walk down this road with me. I'm giving you the magic wand, and you have the power now to make any change you would make in the car industry. All right, this is the ultimate power. What would you change?
I would make it mandatory that every single desk manager, sales manager, every general sales manager, and every GM of a dealership have F&I background. Like, I would make it mandatory that every management position grow out of the F&I department. That's what I would make it mandatory, because there's no worse breakdown than when you have sales managers or people who are running a store that don't have F&I background. Because like I said earlier, we F&I managers understand the grind. We understand the challenge and the adversity that happens. However, F&I is the most micro-reported department in a dealership. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that, Sean, is after every single deal is done, if you sold a car today, your F&I manager would do that delivery, right?
Right.
And once that delivery is done, the customer and the F&I manager would walk out of the showroom floor. And what's the first thing that GM is going to ask the F&I manager?
How much do you make on the back end?
How'd you do? Right? How'd you do? It is the most micro-reported about department in a store. Right? And so we understand the pressures that are in F&I. We understand the challenges and adversity, right? And there's no worse thing for an F&I manager than communicating with people who are in management positions who don't understand it, who don't get it, who only know F&I from a 3,000-foot view, right? So if I can make one change immediately right now, it would be that every single management position in the dealership must grow from an F&I position.
It's awesome, man. I love it. All right, so we always do something real funny. Have you had a good time tonight, by the way?
Fantastic time, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate your audience, man, for sure.
Awesome, man. All right, so we always do this last question. The last question is the famous question I always ask everybody because it tells me a lot about a person.
Okay.
All right? Give me your favorite 3 albums of all time.
Thriller, Me Against the World by Tupac, Thriller by Michael Jackson, and of all time, it would be a Michael Jackson, probably Off the Wall.
Off the Wall. Okay, cool. So we got 2 Michael Jacksons and 1 Tupac. I love it. All right. Best rapper, Tupac or Biggie?
Oh, Pac for sure.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, my East Coast people.
All right. So, Shaka, I want to thank you tonight for sitting down with me. I want to thank QuickPage for being QuickPage, man, helping us out in the business, giving us a tool to be able to send video. I want to thank them for also sponsoring this show. I use QuickPage every day, and I endorse it. I also want everybody that doesn't know you, that is in here tonight, which is a few, because I read the comments, and they love you. They didn't know you before, but they love you. I want them to be able to find you. Why don't you tell people how to find you, man?
Yeah, so you can follow me. You can follow me on Facebook, obviously. You can find me on Facebook. I also created the largest F&I focus group in the automotive industry that's on Facebook. It's called the F&I 20 group. Let me see. Let me get a card. It's called the F&I 20 group. I don't know if people can see that. There you go.
Yeah,
F&I 20 group, right? So you can go into that group. It's only automotive personnel in that group. So and there's almost 14,000 members in that group. So you can see me there. YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter. And also, you can go into Dealer F&I University. If you want to know more about Shaka Dyson's F&I training, Dealer F&I University, the #1 F&I training platform in the automotive industry. We changing the game, champions. We changing the game.
Well, I want to thank you very much tonight, Shaka. Ever since the moment I met you in July, I knew at some point I was going to do something with you, and I was proud that you would come on here, share with my audience, and let my audience get to know you, because I think this will even grow your business, because I just think that anytime we can collaborate and get our names out there and get what we stand for and our platforms out there, and people will see, wow, man, this car business isn't what I thought it was. These people are pretty good. There are some good people out there. So I thank you very much. I want to let you know you got a lot of people in here giving you shout outs. You might want to get in the comments to holler at them. And if you could, share us with your group over there, because I'm sure they want to see it too.
Dude, I'm streaming live in my group right now. I've been streaming live in my group the whole time. And just one last thing before we go. I did have a conversation with the guy from QuickPage earlier today, man. The guy who created it. His name is Chad Morgan.
Yep.
I actually put him in the F&I 20 group today because he gave me a demo of this QuickPage app. It's unbelievable.
It's an amazing app.
It's unbelievable. Because everyone's got apps. Everybody has something they develop. But lots of times we have to gauge how relevant they are. And they'll come to somebody like me who runs a group that big, and they'll say, hey, Shaka, I have this. Will you sponsor it? Will you endorse it? And 9 times out of 10, I'm too hesitant to do it. But let me tell you something. He ran me through this tutorial on QuickPage, and I was blown away. And this is what I mean by the automotive industry evolving into apps. This is a prime example right here. I mean, it's a phenomenal follow-up tool. It's fantastic, dude. You have the ability to follow up. You have the ability to use messaging. It's unbelievable. I can go on there and I can see how many times a customer's actually been on there, how many times they viewed my video, if they want to chat live with me. I mean, it's unbelievable. I encourage everybody out there to go and take a peek at it. It's called QuickPage. QuickPage. Go ahead and take a peek at it, man.
Well, Shaka, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you. I respect you, and I can't wait to see you in person again.
Thank you, man. See you down in Miami, buddy.
Yes, sir. God bless.